Hey, video 4. From here I did some research into colours and the psychology of colours and which emotions link to different colours and just how emotions are represented through pigments and sort of. But I wanted to make sure the emotions which I was trying to create were represented correctly. And also it could be a good way to mix up different emotions. So for example, I could use the red is normally cast as quite an angry, aggressive emotion, but instead of using red, I could maybe use an orange, using the more of an angry and aggressive mark, and link that together and see if that would represent more of an angry emotion or an arrogant emotion, depending on how the colour represents the mark within. Okay, so I found this sheet here. It just kind of gives the both positive and negative views of each colour, how people would interpret each colour in both a positive and negative light, which is good because colours can sometimes mean one thing, but then the alternative side of the spectrum, it could also mean another emotion, and you need to be clear when you're using what you want to get across. So yeah. I did some samples using the different colours and different mediums. So within I used acrylic paint, watercolours and pencil crayons as well within the different colours, and generally I found that the use of watercolours, so as you can see here, were softer on the page. This could be used as a backdrop, it could add subtleness to the background and different colours for different emotions still, but throughout them all the watercolours were more subtle, and even the darker ones that could portray like envy using the watercolour, they were more subtle compared to the acrylic, where the darker colour again would portray envy in a more bold and sharp light. With the pencil crayons, you could add a lot of pressure and determine what type of mark you wanted from them. So this could be quite good if I wanted to distinguish, so on top just distinguish the different marks throughout and how the colours didn't really alter the effect that it gave. The lines were still sharp, you could still see that the marks were quite angry even with the lighter colours, as it kept the sharpness, where the watercolours and the acrylic paint you couldn't really see it. But yeah, I like the texture. Using the acrylic, I do quite like the boldness of the colours, but I feel like they're quite block, and if you wanted a block colour that'd be great, but on their own I didn't feel like, I felt like they were just a block colour saying one thing. But I do like, I just dragged my nails through the paint and it did give it a good texture and just increased kind of the emotions that could be seen within that section of paint. So it went from being one block colour and having the texture run through it, it made it more angry, it could be seen as insecure, it could be seen as hurt or damaged because of the marks that's left in the paint. So I did quite like them ones. Over here I do really quite like the mixture of the pink and the purples throughout the mixture of all the different mediums, so including the pencil crayon, the watercolours along here and the acrylic paints. I feel like they work well together and they've all kind of linked well together. And overall the piece, the bit of paper could convey an emotion in itself, so it could be energetic, overwhelming because it is confused, but I feel like the pinks and the purples, it was hard to represent different emotions other than the specific ones they were linked to in the first place. So the purple meaning quite wealthy, quite luxury, and the pink meaning quite loved and tranquil. I feel like that's what's represented in that piece, and I don't feel like the anger could be shown using those pigments. I don't feel like it's shown through it in a sense, as even the more angry marks down at the bottom still look quite soft and quite gentle with a lot of pressure put on. But it could be possible to add those marks within a different interpretation. But here I found a small paragraph, and it's actually the drawing and archaeology of the art of touching. So this was the first opening paragraph to the Drawing Today book by Tony Guthrie, and it just reads as though everything is a mark, and every little mark that's made is an expression throughout someone's day, how they must be feeling. So like the railings, and there was a trail of marks from a stick. He scrawled a moustache on a movie poster. And yeah, I just feel like it represented people actually living, which is kind of what I wanted to link back to the quote at the beginning, that people make marks throughout their life and it's impossible not to. So I feel like this making marks every single day just by like touching something or stepping in something or accidentally rubbing against something. I did think this linked quite well into these psychiatric hospitals and stuff, how generally there were carvings in the wall of patients that struggled with the mental health and stuff. But I did also take some images around Carlisle, just of marks and bits of paint or broken grate. This could be a representation of anger or frustration, even like rebellion, a broken panel, accidentally put the foot through it. But yeah, so with this one, I don't feel like it's a creative way of documenting someone's emotions, as I've been looking at the movement of a person or the emotions they felt within that moment, whereas this is more of an after effect. So it's more of after the movement, this is what happened, which is a good way of representing it, I suppose, but I don't feel it's as creative or could be interpreted as well through an experimental piece. So yeah, I do like the idea though. We could use the imagery somehow in the future, or the broken panel, the effect and the broken wall, but yeah. So that's that. I then went on to do some research into suicide itself. So there is some facts and statistics here. So a couple that stood out, oh, there's this one along here. So people who die by suicide generally have a mental health illness, most commonly depression or an alcohol problem. Vulnerable people to suicide. So an example of this would be someone that suffers life history, so has had a traumatic event during the childhood, or sexual or physical abuse, mental health issues, lifestyle, so misuse of drugs or alcohol, employment, so a poor job security, relationships, being socially isolated, that sort of stuff. So down here it goes to list different mental health conditions. and it's estimated that 90% of people who attempt to die by suicide have one or more mental health conditions. So down here, if you can see, I've highlighted different emotions that they may be feeling. So severe depression, low mood, tiredness, loss of interest, despair, hopelessness, bipolar disorders, very high and happy feelings, and then very low and depressed feelings. Schizophrenia may see hallucinations or delusions. But yeah, it's just kind of highlighting what people feel during these mental health issues and how someone may interpret them rather than just in these ways. So I did create some mood boards of what art is around at the moment, and it is artwork. So I typed in suicide artwork, and this is basically what's come up. So it's generally the difference between illustrations, so drawings, images of people, or the use of words, so crazy, useless, ugly, what they might be feeling or how they think of their self. So again, a lot of people in pain, if you can see, very like sad looking face, a lot of dark colours. There's not a lot of colour, well, there's no colour. It's a lot of dark colours, it's words, and it's people looking sad or interpreted as upset and physically in pain. That as well, so it either came up as illustration or animation. So the two different types, again, it's not a lot of colour, it's dark, it's gruesome, and with the animation it's generally describing the mental health issues as monsters. So I think I've said before, this could be something for someone to relate to, but then I feel like if someone's relating to this and this is how the stigma's represented, it's not going to help deal with the stigma, as generally people are told to, oh, monsters are scary in films and everything, monsters are scary, stay away. And if you're interpreting a mental health issue as a monster, people aren't going to try and look at it a different way. They're just going to be scared of someone that might be fighting with a mental health issue. So yeah, a lot of dark colours, obviously to represent sadness and despair, and yeah. But yeah, so that's what came up when I researched into that. And I did some other research as well on books and films. So recently a TV series came out, 13 Reasons Why. It's probably heard of it. But it's based around a girl that commits suicide, and then she leaves 13 reasons as to why she committed suicide. So it's the whole series is basically based around the effect of this girl dying and how that's affected other people and how people could have stopped it if they'd have realised, if they'd have looked further into things that she might have done or emotions, how she was acting, which is kind of based around the initial quote once again, and it's how she has affected someone's life by thinking she was alone, had no one, when she actually did. But it does, throughout the episodes, it does highlight what happens afterwards. So there was one girl that started drinking heavily, there was people that were upset, they were sad, they needed help with dealing with the effect, that they could have helped this girl but didn't realise, or yeah. But the series itself did highlight other stuff. So it was as if she had no one to talk to, whereas actually she had family, there was a support worker. But yeah, So this was a really good way of viewing someone's point of view after the issue, after her leaving, and how her leaving did affect people. So yeah. And then again, another book slash film. So Perks of Being a Wallflower. This is by Stephen Shrewsbury. He wrote a book and it's full of letters from a boy that's going through high school, and the first chapter itself is basically him explaining why it's hard. So the first chapter explains his only friend committed suicide. He didn't realise that he was upset. He thought that obviously he would come and speak to him about it, but he hasn't, and he's just let it fester and broken down about it. And the film and the book itself is based around him trying to pick himself up and trying to deal with the effect of this boy committing suicide and how it's affected his life, basically. It is a really upsetting film. But yeah. And then a little bit more research. So there is a Disney movie about emotions itself. So the animations, once again, and each animation is based on different emotions they might be feeling. So like anger is red for the colour anger, mad, jealousy, embarrassed, frustrated, and then Joy's got a smile on her face and is more playful, more confident. And I just thought that was nice to put in there, as it's a way of relating to an emotion. And these aren't dark, they're not black and white, they're not sad, they're representing the emotions the way they are felt rather than how someone would look representing an emotion. So yeah, in here there's just some facts and figures that are quite interesting to look through. That was the NHS little booklet for County Durham, Darlington. Just facts and figures there. But we'll stop that here. Just a bit more research into suicide itself, and so yeah.